and gentle cults, thank you for this congregation, for today is a tragic occasion. Tears have been shed, goodbyes have been said, as we lay our dear tank to rest. For hibernation. Wait, what? Yes, like very many people when glancing at the title of this episode, I had the inkling suspicion that it would be about the death of our beloved Tank the Tortoise. But I also suspected it probably wouldn't be, not only because of the, frankly, irritating standard of children's entertainment to never ever talk about death or even say the word, not even when it's the topic of your entire f***ing movie, which this is not the time for me to go into how much I disagree with that, but also because I suspected it would be kind of a waste to completely rid the show of a character that could never be used again, especially one that, just considering the amount of screen time, we've technically just met. However, as it turns out, we weren't that far off. Rainbow gets really excited at the idea of playing with Tank during the winter, only to find out that Tank is getting ready to hibernate. And frankly, the way this episode executes the subject, this episode easily could have been about Tank's death without even having to change that much dialogue. And as it turns out, that actually is probably intentional, as this episode is a near pitch-perfect display of Rainbow Dash going through the 5 stages of grief. And boy, when she goes through the stages, she goes through them hard. When she first hears about hibernation, she denies and ignores every naysayer to the point of irrationality. She even refutes Fluttershy's animal knowledge in favor of Spike. Which, by the way, I love this bit with Spike here. When she gets angry, she explodes. And then when she's bargaining, or more specifically in this case, the stage where you believe any of your mortal actions can somehow stop the inevitable, she goes a little crazy. Like, in all logic, Rainbow Dash should have gone to jail at the end of this episode crazy.
I'll just have to stop winter!
The Dash got a wonderful, awful idea. You know, I sometimes think that people overpraise MLP's use of references, but they are really fun when they happen. And aside from the Grinch routine, we got a Who's On First routine, which, while not as intricate, was kinda cute. I was wondering why at first they suddenly all had New York accents. I guess that's why. And then, the inevitable.
Winter is coming.
That was so forced and I don't even care! So then Rainbow Dash sings the reverse winter wrap-up song, and while not a catchy song and the lyrics are a little forced, it is a fairly pretty song melodically. I really like the instrumentals in it. Rainbow attempts to sabotage the weather machine in Cloudsdale to stop winter. Which, by the way, Cloudsdale can move? That seems so obvious now. Now, I can see how some can be taken aback by the portrayal of Dash's character in this episode. You know, willing to potentially destroy Equestria's ecosystem for the sake of pet playtime. Ah yes, the ever-enduring discussion of the limits of cartoony exaggerated actions before it intrudes on logic, character likability, and intelligence. That usually always ends with, it either bothers you or it doesn't. But honestly, in terms of her character, it's really not that deviated considering past examples of Rainbow's me-tinted glasses and her natural over-the-top personality. But the side effects have never been this, potentially damaging on such a large perimeter. However, there are 2 crucial differences between this and, say, Season 1 Dash. 1, Dash knows what she's doing is wrong, which does show a level of self-awareness that Dash didn't have before. Though some could argue why that's technically worse. But 2, Dash is working her way through grief, and people have been known to not always act the most rational when they're grieving. Just like people have been known to do crazy things when they have crushes, by the way. Still, this sort of premeditated destruction, seriously, how did she not go to jail? Well, we can always assume there were off-screen repercussions. After the sabotage backfires and Rainbow incidentally brings about winter in a faster, less labor-intensive way, yes, I wonder how many buildings were crushed and ponies potentially killed. Finally, Rainbow hits the depression stage, and this scene is the one that broke everyone. First of all, wow, Fluttershy actually retained the lesson that sometimes you need to be cruel to be kind. Continuity, boom. Oh, also, the running of the leaves at the start of the episode. And note, Rainbow Dash's expressions and physicality in this episode are great, which is good not just because it's a very emotional episode, but also because she's the sole actor in most of it. And I really wish we had seen this level of joy and devotion between Dash and Tank more in the past. Their interactions are some of the most adorable moments in the show, and you can really feel how much Dash— the too adorable. However, I know the girls are trying to help, but initially it seems like they're trying a little too hard to have Dash just hurry up and be fine. Getting her to confront the problem is one thing, but then just waiting for her to stop crying? Let the girl cry, girls! Until they too eventually get swept up into the emotion. After Fluttershy starts, because it's okay for her to cry. Oh, and I love this bit with AJ. AJ cries on the inside. I guess I never really noticed, but that actually makes perfect sense considering her stubborn, no-nonsense personality. I ain't got time to cry, I got work to do. Also, I guess being an affectionate big sister doesn't necessarily mean that she's good with crying. Finally, Dash reaches acceptance.
He's ready to hibernate. You're using the word! Oh, she's using the word!
Okay, that has to be on purpose. We see everyone's fantastic winter wear. Tank goes underground to hibernate, and the episode ends with a beautiful, solemn moment. There's no doubt that this can be taken as a metaphorical death episode. I mean, Tank frickin' buried himself. And I'm not sure whether to be impressed or call it cheating. Though I guess it can be both. I mean, all things considered, this was a very tactful and clever way to approach the subject of grief. You know, since they couldn't do the obvious thing. But even beside the metaphor, it works because certainly people can grieve in situations that don't necessarily involve death, such as a friend moving away. Which could existentially mean the same thing. And I'm also glad that no one had to come in and dumb it down. No one had to say, Dash is going through the 5 stages of grief. And for all my jabs, Dash's sabotage in the middle isn't a major problem with the episode, but it is probably the weakest part. Unlike other times where it's fun to watch our girls go crazy, here the entire point is to show how much she's screwing other ponies over because that's how irrational grief is making her. And aside from that, there are numerous places where Tank could have actually died. It also drags a little bit. But man, if this episode doesn't stick the landing in the end, even though it's not a particularly exciting or funny episode entertainment-wise, though it certainly still has plenty of those fun touches. Ha! Pinky walked through a wall. This episode's weight is on the larger concept, the subtext, and the feels. Which is all the more effective being told through Dash, as being emotional isn't something she does a lot. I really appreciated this brutal, genuine emotion with this sweet, honest ending, as well as seeing the affection being exchanged between Dash and Tank. Boy, this season is throwing a lot of heavy metaphorical stuff at us, and I am more than happy to keep on rolling. Next time, the return of Brayburn! Maybe, hopefully. So Animaniacs, what did you think of this episode? Comment, like, subscribe, etc., and you stay incredibly shiny, Animaniacs!
Winter